Lately, sir, there's been so much talk and debate over whether the churches should be reopened. I don't know how you feel. What's your take on this?
I'm beginning to get to the point where I am of a similar opinion. I wasn't of that opinion at all before, and the reason is because it's been discovered that the coronavirus spreads faster within enclosures. In other words, within halls, buildings, event centers, and so on, church buildings, and so on. There is a tendency for the virus to spread faster in places like that. However, it's a matter of looking comparing of comparative analysis, really, because we must realize that a lot of people have gotten very depressed by the social isolation that has also come due to the pandemic, and the ability to come together, can be very helpful for such people psychologically, apart from spiritually. And so I'm beginning to think that while I agree very, very much with government in shutting everywhere down initially, because if we check even the Bible, we see that social isolation is one of the solutions we find in the Old Testament for controlling epidemics. And so whenever people were infected, they were supposed to be isolated. So I believe very, very much in that. However, for as much as the country is reopening and people are going to the markets and they are able to go back to work with NDDC protocols being strictly adhered to, then I will encourage, they should allow the churches to reopen and simply put the proper NDDC protocols in place. For instance, make sure that people get their temperature checks when they come. Nobody is allowed into the buildings without wearing masks. Provision should be made for hand wash, hand drying, sanitization before people come in. Spacing should also take place inside the buildings to ensure proper, distancing and isolation. And then again, it should be optional for people to come to church. Whoever wants to come can come. Whoever does not want to come does not come. But every church should be so responsible that if anybody comes and they have body temperature, they're immediately isolated to meet the medical team of every church. The good thing is that you can hardly find any church that is fairly sizable that does not have probably one doctor or the other inside it, one nurse or the other inside it. So the medical personnel can be the first responders to a situation like that, and then references can now be made to the government or to isolation centers. And now, even though our church is in we have two churches in Lagos, and they've been shut down in the last several months, we have branches in other parts of the country. And except for our branch in Ogun State, the ones in other parts of the country have reopened, and we are adhering very strictly to NDDC protocols. We even go a little bit further than the demands of government, just to be very careful. And so I'm for the reopening of the churches, but government should play a part. They should demand that the churches should put those things in place, go around, check them that they did it right, and when the doors are open, supervision should continue. And any church that is not in compliance should be shut down.
Okay, sir. Yeah. Sir, can you share with us the story of Global Harvest Churches? How did it all start, and how did it
Global Harvest Church started with the call of God upon a very young man. I was a teenage boy when the call of God came upon my life to preach the gospel.
What age, sir? What age?
I was only 16 when the call of God came upon my life. And and I started preaching at 17. I was under the tutelage of Reverend George Adegboye, the founder of Rima Chapel International Churches at the time. And at the age of 21, I began to pastor the Ibadan branch of Rima Chapel. 5 years later, at the age of 26, I started and founded Global Harvest Church. I always knew that someday I will graduate from under the tutelage of Reverend Adegboye. And so when the time came, we started in Ibadan, Nigeria. And we are grateful to God over the years. we've spread around the country and to a few foreign countries today, because we're in Kenya, we're in South Africa, in the United Kingdom and the United States of America. And if not for the pandemic, we're already doing groundwork in Canada also. And we're looking forward to the spread continuing in the nation and around the world. Our passion, in line with God's calling on us as a ministry is to win souls. Soul winning is the number one all-consuming passion. It is our belief that when a life is transformed from the inside to the outside, that life is able to live out its purpose, because every human being that comes into this world comes because God has a reason for sending them here. There's a contribution every life ought to make to humanity. So that is very well articulated in our mission statement that says helping individuals discover and accomplish their God-given purpose through life-transforming experiences with Christ. And so that, in a nutshell, is the story of Global Harvest.
Okay. And how did you see your period of tutelage at Rema before you set up your church? How was it?
It was a very exciting, and challenging period of tutelage for me. Very exciting because it was a period of rapid spiritual development. My pastor, Reverend George Adegboye, is a very knowledgeable person in the Word of God. In fact, he has been nicknamed Mobile Bible, a moving concordance by some people, because in a single sermon, Reverend Adegboye can quote 200 verses of the Bible without opening his Bible to look at it whatsoever. So for me, being able to drink from that very rich reservoir of spiritual knowledge was a very exciting experience. And then I had the opportunity of working very closely with him. He became another father to me, another dad. So just like a child learns from his father, I was able to learn from him. There was a lot of inspiration that I got just by watching his life, a lot of maturation, both spiritually and generally in life, also just watching him. It was also a bit challenging because he was also a disciplinarian. He was very strict, and so we were very careful not to mess up, not to misbehave. And I look back today, and I'm very grateful. My own youthfulness at the time also saw me taking on responsibilities that were meant for adults, and so that really stretched me as a person. I was a mommy's boy, and so I didn't have much courage. But pastoring 2,000 people at the age of 24, I had to grow up very quickly. I really had to grow up.
Okay, sir. Let me also ask you to share with us your relationship with your brother, Pastor Sam Adeyemi. How has it been?
Oh, it's been very fulfilling, very exciting, very enriching. He is my older brother, and interestingly, there's just a year and 10 months between us. And so when children are born so close to one another, they are usually very close. Of course, as children, you will have your sibling rivalry thing. You will wrestle with one another. But he stopped doing that by the time we became teenagers, and he noticed I was as strong as he was. Interestingly, we came into spiritual persuasion about the same time, and our sense of calling into ministry about the same time. So just like we grew up together physically, we also grew up spiritually together. And we worked under the same pastor also, and left that ministry interestingly at the same time. We didn't plan it as siblings. We just discovered. I was like, look, God is speaking to me. I think he was the first person to speak on the journey. We were going to meet with our pastor in Ilorin, Kwara State. And on the journey, he just said to me, I'm planning to talk to our pastor. God is speaking to me about starting a ministry, an independent ministry, which is Daystar Christian Center today. I was like, really? I was also planning to talk to him. God has been speaking to me about starting a ministry, and that is Global Harvest today. And so it was a discovery we both made, and that was how we started our ministry. So we continue to remain very close. the Bible says that a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for the day of adversity. And that's been the relationship. We've loved one another from childhood, and we continue to do so. And in the good times and the bad times, we are solidly there for one another. We like a verse in Proverbs that says there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. We feel very, very close. We feel like we're not just brothers, we are very close friends. To continue to share with one another in a way that is mutually beneficial for us.
Okay. Okay, sir. Let's also talk about the role of your wife. I know she's involved in the ministry. Can you tell us a bit about her role?
She has been a rock. She has been by my side very solidly from day one. We met when we were both under my pastor, Reverend Adegboye. In fact, at a time until we got married, she was his personal assistant. And so we became connected by our shared values and shared passion for spiritual things. We sensed a lot of mutuality between both of us, and that grew into a strong conviction that we were really meant for each other in God's plan. And we are so grateful. We got married together on the 7th of November, 1992. So we are 27 years married now. I was 20. The very day we got married, I was 24 years. So it was my 24th birthday anniversary. I was very young when we got married, and she was just a 22-year-old young lady when we got married. And we've been at it for 27 years together. She was 22 and a half, so she turned 50 recently. And we thank God our marriage has grown over the years, and she has been right there by my side. She has been the vice president of our ministry from the very beginning. She served as administrator. She has served in various capacities over the years. Today, she is even the pastor of our main church in Lagos, because I oversee all the branches and I travel a lot. She pastors the church, and she is doing a much better job at it than I was doing. So she really has been very active from the very first day of the ministry, and she remains very active till today. She's a solid partner, and she's a solid rock behind me.
Okay, sir. Sir, can you also share with us a little bit about your growing up years? Where were you born? Where did you grow up? And schools attended?
Well, life for me started over 51 and a half years ago in Mokwa, Niger State. Actually born in the NEPA hospital, the then NEPA hospital in Kainji, that is New Busa, during the building of the dam in New Busa at the time. So our dad at the time worked with the Ahmadu Bello University Research Station in Mokwa, Niger State. He was the head of the building and maintenance section of that research station, and we lived in the staff quarters at the time. The staff quarters was located in a village, and so my first 8 years of life was in a rural setting. That's why I don't like this Lagos as much as I like my village, and and I like the rural setting. So and we hail from Oduere in Kogi State, then Kwara State, now Kogi State. So we are part of what you call the Okun people of Kogi State, and we speak the Yagba dialect. It's a dialect of the Yoruba language, and our historical ancestry for our people is from Oyoile in Oyo State. That is where the ancestry is from. So life started out in Mokwa, Niger State, and then I was 8 when our family moved to Ilorin, Kwara State. Then our dad resigned his appointment, decided to go into business. But one of his major motivations for moving to Ilorin was he didn't want his sons to grow up in that rural area. He wanted us exposed to real life and to grow up in a city. So he moved us to Ilorin, where we furthered our education through primary school, then secondary school. I went to Titcombe College in Egbe, present day Kogi State, then Kwara State also, and also the Kwara State Polytechnic. It was from the Kwara State Polytechnic that I now went into the ministry with Rima Chapel, and I've been in the ministry since. So growing up was started in rural Nigeria, in the simplicity of it, and our family also a humble family, humble background. Our family was very, very, quite a very religious family. We went to church regularly, and that predisposed us to whatever we are doing today. By the grace of God, we've been able to now develop into the place where we are spiritually. But that foundation was laid by our parents. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. As we round up, sir, what will be your message to our listeners and viewers at home, sir?
To our listeners, I think if there's anything I want to say is that they should please keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Difficult times don't last forever. When I finished secondary school as a teenage boy, I failed exams. I didn't do well. Couldn't make enough credits to further my education immediately. Shortly after that, poverty set in the family. My parents couldn't even afford to send me back to study towards retaking examinations. There was a time, it was through the contribution of Christian brothers and sisters in a small fellowship that I was able to get enough money to go do GCE, to now be able to put my results together to further my education. It was a very gloomy period for me. It was, as a boy, I was extremely depressed and even suicidal at a point. I'm thankful I didn't have the courage to take my own life at the time. But I remember stumbling on a book from an uncle of mine who had led me to Christ and brought me into the faith that I now have today. And that book was written by Robert Schuller, and it's titled Tough Times Last, but Tough People Do. I picked the book and began to read it, and hope began to revive on the inside of me. The one reality is this: tough times never last. This is not a fourth pandemic that will hit the world. There was one my brother discovered from research that happened about 100 years ago, even affected Nigeria. Churches and mosques were shut down at the time. Markets were even shut down temporarily also. Today we still have our planet. So there are various challenges that have come against our world in history, but we always overcome. So it's the same thing for us as individuals. Victory is a great possibility for each and every one. Each and every one should just seek to connect with God, have a relationship with God. Don't go through life alone without that help that comes from heaven. When heaven is backing you up, you will survive your trying times and you will come out of it victoriously. So keep hope alive. Whether you know how to come out of the challenges of these times or not, just remain hopeful. I like a verse of scripture that says that there is hope of a tree. If it be cut down at the scent of water, it will sprout again. There is going to be that scent of water, so to speak, somewhere along the line. An opportunity will open up. A connection will be made. There will be a turnaround in the economy. The virus will leave this world and times will become better. So just keep hope alive. Throwing in the towel is a terrible option. Let's keep hope alive. Let's be expectant. Things will certainly get better.
So how do you see the political situation in the country?
Well, the political situation in the country is not one that excites me personally whatsoever. While on one hand, I am grateful for the gradual political evolution of Nigeria. At least we are no longer under military rule. We are no longer the pariah nation that we were before this current democratic experiment that thankfully has been the longest one in our national trajectory. However, I'm not happy that we do not have any strong political party that is based on any sound ideology. The freedom with which our politicians move from APC to PDP back to APC is really, really very sad, in my own opinion. We want to see sound ideologies. We also want to see courageous leadership that will not only fight corruption by trying those who are corrupt, who have been noticed to be corrupt out there, but a level of social reorientation that should take place in the entire nation. And I believe that if the government is really going to come up with a very sound strategy, apart from the fact that there are more than enough media outlets and platforms to use today to speak and communicate to the nation, we can even infiltrate the educational curricula of our schools, right from elementary all the way to tertiary institutions, to re-educate the average Nigerian. What we see with our political leaders is a reflection of the larger society, of the charade that we see going on at times in the House of Reps when people are being questioned about, when there are investigations, oversight functions being carried out, accusations and counter-accusations going on. They are all a reflection of the larger society. It's easy for us to point accusing fingers at our leaders, political leaders, but they are just reflecting the rest of us. So my prayer is that God will give us visionary and courageous political leadership who will reorientate the entire nation in addition to ensuring the establishment of the rule of law for national transformation. That is where I am. But we are grateful. We are not under military rule. We are taking baby steps as a nation. I'm just praying that we can see an acceleration in our development. It is high time that Nigeria comes out of the doldrums.